Well, hello. It's been a while since I did a book review, but I've been working on writing them, so I thought, well, I better start filming a few. So here's one being filmed. This is a nice short book. It's called the Distraction Free First Draft, and it's written by Woz Delgado Flint. And, of course, it's about writing books. So, let's talk about it. So, first of all, it's a little book. I actually read it while watching a wrestling meet in Killdeer, North Dakota, back in winter of 2024. I was watching a wrestling meet. And if you're like me, you're really only interested in the wrestlers from one school because wrestling isn't that interesting. And if you don't even know the kids involved, who cares? So it's good to have a book along. The nature of the book is it's a quick read and it's easy to pick up and set down because of how it's written. So the focus of the book is actually writing a first draft. So the author's tool of choice is a typewriter. And you know typewriters have appeared on this channel, so of course I got interested. And that's because of the lack of distractions. The typewriter has a more physical feel, a more physical sound. And that really appeals to me. I like the mechanical aspect of a typewriter. Compare the feel and sound of a typewriter with the laptop with the keys that travel about that far. And relatively silent. I actually don't like drafting on a computer keyboard, to be honest. I never have. So the author does identify several well-known and less well-known authors and their own typewriter of choice. You'll see some names you'll recognize. She also gets into the notion of typewriters as tools for writing, versus as a collection, because some people just collect typewriters. To her, you should just be able to grab your typewriter and start typing. You shouldn't be worrying about repair stuff. And they're out there. I own several of them. I'm doing a little repair work, but very basic. The table of contents is actually pretty good. It's a very thoughtful, beyond just being a normal table of contents, it's actually a very thoughtful outline of the book. Well beyond what I'd consider a typical table of contents. And so you peruse it and you know exactly what's in the book. Still have to read the book, but now you know what's in it exactly. So she begins with the basics in her book. She talks about the three main types of mechanical typewriter, your desktop machines, your mid-sizes, and your portables. She does not get into electronic typewriters. Those are the ones that have a little bit of computer technology to help them, but she does talk about electric typewriters, which don't have computer technology in them. And she actually does mention what are called smart typewriters. These are single function devices that are just entirely about drafting novels or whatever. Something like the Astra House Freewrite. So, whoops, I just bumped my own typewriter. So the book actually has a good section on buying typewriters, both in person and online. I've done both. There is helpful advice and tips about what to look for and what to avoid, as well as some useful ideas about price, what's appropriate for a typewriter. And in the next part of the book, she then interviews a diverse number of people in the typewriter world, from collectors to repair people to writers. And if you're into typewriters at all, you probably know a few of those names. My favorite piece of writing advice in the book actually came from Sarah Everett. And hers is to leave your typewriter out so you're always inspired to use it. And you can't see it, but I'm patting my Underwood SX here from the 1950s. 1950s or early 1940s, or late 1940s, I forget, but anyway, I like it. It's the one I leave out all the time. But anyway, if it's out, you're inspired to use it. And you're not like, oh, but I gotta go down and get it. And this is, a big honking 35-pound machine, so yeah, getting it isn't just a quick run down the steps. The final section of the book is about the actual act of writing, and a lot of it is general writing advice you'd find in any writing book, and it's a short book, so it's not very detailed, but basically organize your research ahead of time, Don't distract yourself from writing to look up a factoid. Just plow ahead, leave a dash or an underline or X's or something so you know to fill it in later. And she gets in the concept of outlining versus pantsing. So some people like to plan their book out in advance. Others like to just, whatever the muse leads me. And I'm not going to judge because I do both. This video was outlined. Some videos you watch from me are very pantsed, right on the screen. She gets into some typewriter-specific topics like typing in public spaces. And yeah, she does share something with me, a very strong discomfort in doing so. So true story. Back during the COVID-19 lockdowns is when I first dragged my Smith Corona Silent Super out of the basement after probably 2 decades of being moved but never actually being used. And so I started using it. And again, I was trying to just something that wasn't on a screen. And when warm weather arrived and I was opening my windows, I'm all of a sudden nervous to use it. And that's in my own house. So, she does have some advice about overcoming this in public places like cafes or whatever. But the main thing is that most of us realize as we age. It took me a good long while to realize this, but as I got older, I realized that, most people just aren't that interested in what I'm doing. I'm definitely not as interested as I think they are. And if I do something weird, I may get a little side eye, but then they go back to their own concerns because their concerns are more interesting than mine. So I do want to make a brief side note here. There is a video on YouTube, and I'm not going to bookmark it to give him extra traffic because I think the guy's a jackass. But anyway, this guy brings a manual typewriter into a lecture hall at a university. It looked like a computer science class. And he starts typing and, of course, giggles from everybody. And he's got this assistant filming him. And, the truth is it was distracting to the students who are actually paying money to be there in this class. And rude. Time and place. And for the record, the most public place I've ever typed with a typewriter, other than that time last year I had typewriters in my classroom for a couple days, out here, front sidewalk, felt very self-conscious doing it, haven't done it again. But anyway, she also talks about finding a good workplace, preferably a dedicated space. My house is kind of small to do that really, but I can have one end of the living room as office. And I usually have 2 typewriters set up. One over by the couch, this big one over here. That's actually good work advice too, because you'll sit down to work in a work area. And even though it's my living room, this is the work area of the living room. So I work over here. I don't relax. Plus, this chair is good for working in. It is not comfortable to lounge in. When my parents visited, they both said, wow, that is an uncomfortable chair. I'm like, I know, it's supposed to be. I work in it. I don't lounge in it. And she gets into talk about rewards and goal setting, and she discusses scheduling your writing and different pitfalls like writer's block. So in the final pages of the book, briefly touch on next steps, like how do you get your text onto the computer, because let's face it, you're going to edit on your computer. She suggests searching OCR, which is optical character recognition software online. But it's kind of short on details about what's a good one. And I can see why after trying to find a good one. I haven't found a good one. So I will tell you, the best I have found is Google Docs. And I don't like to use Google. I mean, I know YouTube is a Google platform, but, Google isn't my favorite for a lot of reasons. Like, I don't like being the product. But anyway, what you do is if you open an image or PDF file in Google Docs, so you import it into Google somehow, and then open it in Google Docs, it does a pretty fair job of recognizing text that's typed. Now, to do some weird things with like bold facing and thinks that, you hit this letter harder, so it must mean you want that letter bold-faced in the middle of the word. And if you have typos, it doesn't know what to do with that. Also, it does not seem to understand paragraphs super well. So, what I have wondered sometimes is maybe I would be happier just marking up the pages like I do after I scan it, then typing it up again with a mechanical keyboard into a computer. Maybe that's better. I don't know. I'm still up in the air about that. I don't own a desktop. I only own a laptop, so the mechanical keyboard would be kind of a fluffy extra. So I'm not totally down with how to transform the typed text into computerized text yet. But she does close the book with some other suggestions on ways to use typewriters, and she gives a limited selection of typewriter community links and courses. So I will say this book is hard to find. The publisher, I'm going to read this now, the publisher does not sell to major retailers like Amazon or Barnes & Noble. So don't go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble looking for it because you won't find it. I found my copy at Mitzi's Books in Rapid City, South Dakota, which is an independent bookstore in downtown Rapid City. So if you have an independent bookstore, they aren't that common anymore, but if you can find one, you may be able to get it there or be able to order it there. The author also gives a link to buy the book on her website. And I don't like to do publicity for authors because I book review. I don't do publicity. But I'm going to since this is a special case, because I don't know how else you're going to find the book, I did put a link to her website in the video description. So if you really want this book, that's where you can find it. So overall, it's a nice little book that you can read in a day, even if you're watching a wrestling meet in Killdeer, North Dakota, because that's what I did. The style is friendly and accessible. It is well organized. The illustrations are very few, but not really needed in this book. So I'm going to just close so you have an idea what I was putting up with some footage of my reading environment. And yes, that was a fire alarm going on during the wrestling meet. Nobody bats an eye. Nobody moves. So, yeah, if you're looking for a short book on how to use typewriters in your writing for rough drafting, The Distraction-Free First Draft by Woz Delgado Flint. Unplug, forget perfectionism, and write more than ever using a typewriter. So, thank you for watching. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.